Hey guys, it's Rob. We're back and this time we're doing a TryHackMe box called Skynet. It's a Linux box and it's rated as easy. And it wasn't too bad. I did get stuck in a couple of spots, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So without further ado, you can see I am connected to TryHackMe's VPN and I do have the Skynet box spun up, and here's the IP address. So the first thing we did was we ran an nmap scan, and we did service version detection, T4 aggressive on the most common ports. And what came back was 2280, which is running an Apache web server, 110, which is Dovecot, which is a POP3 server. Looks like SMB is running as well, and IMAP, which is also part of Dovecot. So went to the website first just to see what was going on, and it was basically just this Skynet website. So what I thought I would do first was try and connect to SMB and see if there were any shares available. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to use a tool called smbmap. And we have to pop in the IP address here and hit enter. And it looks like we have hit some pay dirt here. It looks like there's a bunch of shares: print, which is a normal one, IPC, which is a normal one, and then there's an anonymous one that we have read access to, and then there's a one for a user called Miles Dyson, which we do not have access to. So what we'll do is we will try and connect to this anonymous SMB client. And we'll try to connect to anonymous. Let's see, what am I doing? Oh, I have the wrong IP address in here, that's why. Let's paste in the correct IP address. And it asks for password, which anonymous access is allowed, so we'll just hit enter, and we get an SMB prompt. So what we'll do is we'll type ls to see what's in there. There's an attention.txt, and it looks like there's a directory called logs. So let's get attention.txt. So we got that, and then we'll cd into logs. We'll do an ls. It looks like there are 3 log files, but it looks like there's only something in log 1. So we'll do get log1.txt. All right, and I think we can exit out of here for now. So let's see what we obtained from this SMB share. So we'll open folder. And it looks like we have attention and log 1. So let's look at attention first. And it says a recent system malfunction has caused various passwords to be changed. All Skynet employees are required to change their password after seeing this. Miles Dyson. Okay. So let's look at log 1. Okay, and this looks like a list of potential passwords. So in looking at the share Miles Dyson and looking at this, it looks like we could potentially have a set of credentials. So what I'm going to do is, for right now, I'm going to minimize this, and we're going to turn our attention back to the website. So what we're going to do is what we do anytime we come up against a website and don't really know what to do, is we're going to do gobuster. And we are going to change the IP address. And we're going to hit enter. Well, let me make sure wildcards spelled out. There we go. And we'll let this run. And so far I see an admin panel. I see a config panel. Index.html. JS, server status. Ooh, and we see something called squirrel mail. Now, we did know that there was a Dovecot running on this server, so that makes sense. So let's come over here. Let's copy this. Come over here. Let's see what happens. And we get a squirrel mail login prompt. Now would be a good time to potentially try and log in using what we think we have as far as credentials, which based on the, if you remember, we look at SMB, we have this share named Miles Davis, Dyson, sorry, not Miles Davis, Miles Dyson. And typically, you know, those things are named after the username. So that's a good username for us. And we have the list of potential passwords. Now this could, I could automate this somehow, but I thought about just, you know, trying the first one and see what happens. So we're going to copy that. We're going to go to Squirrel Mail and we're going to type Miles Dyson and let's paste in that password and log in. And it lets us in. So there's 3 emails here. Click on the first one, it looks like nonsense. Click on the second one here, nonsense again, unless you can read binary. And then, oh, something here that says Samba password reset. How convenient. So we click on that. And it says we've changed your SMB password after system malfunction. The password is now this. So let's copy that. And now, because we know the SMB password, we could potentially go back here and connect to the Miles Davis share, Miles Dyson share. Sorry, I'm going to continue to call this guy Miles Davis just because I like music. So it's Miles Dyson. We'll paste the password, which, no, we're not going to paste the password. We're going to type in the IP address because I don't want to have to recopy that password. 63.65 and Miles Dyson, and we'll make the user Miles Dyson. So all I did here was use smbclient to try and connect to the share and send over the username Miles Dyson. And what I'll do is I'll just paste the password in when it asks. Password for Miles Dyson, paste clipboard, enter, and we are in. So now we have another SMB prompt. We type ls, and there is a bunch of stuff in here. And it looks like there's a directory called notes. But there is also a bunch of other documents which I'm not sure are applicable unless you're doing research on neural networks. So let's just go into notes and see what's in there. All right, a bunch of markdown files. Linear algebra, don't care about that. Statistics. Is there anything in here that's actually important? Grass unsupervised process optimization, nonlinear foundations. I'm not seeing anything in here that could potentially be important. Or is there any directories? No. In practice, cover linear. Oh, here we go. Important.txt. I didn't see that. I thought that was a carryover from the previous line. So let's get that. Get important.txt. All right, let's see what we got. Important.txt. Okay, add features to beta CMS, and it looks like some kind of string, and work on T800 Model 101 blueprints, spend more time with wife. Good luck on that, Miles Dyson. So this, to me, means CMS is a content management system. This means we should try to append this potentially to the URL of the website. So we're going to copy that. We're going to come back here. Paste, get rid of this other slash, and we get Miles Dyson personal page, which isn't very helpful. So maybe we gotta go bust. It didn't pick up this directory gobuster, which is kind of weird. But what we'll do is let's come back to this, and we will do this again, and we'll just paste in that CMS URI. paste clipboard. And we'll do directory busting on that. Hit enter. Ooh, right off the bat, we got something called administrator, which looks promising. Index.html. And it looks like that might be it. Yep, that's it. So let's come back up here and we'll add administrator to the URL. And it takes us to the CMS system CUPA. Okay. Let's do a quick view page source, see if there's anything in here we can use, like a version. It's not looking good so far. All right, let's try logging in with Miles Dyson. Oops. And that password we had. For some reason, I don't think it's going to work, but you never know. Copy. Paste. No. All right. The other thing we can do is, I don't know much about CUPA CMS, so let's search exploit CUPA. All right, something does come up, and it looks like a local remote file inclusion. Okay. So if we search for this on the web, we actually get this. So let's see, there's nothing else in here. Okay, so PHP code injection. It looks like you can craft a URL, add this. We don't have CUPA, so I'm not, but I'm guessing we just get rid of this. And then here's our target, which would be the URL that we're on here. Get rid of this. The URL we're on here. So we would append this to this. All right, so let's see. I did open up SearchBlade, so let's copy that over and make sure the same information's in there. So the way you can do that is if you use SearchBlade, all you got to do is add the tag M and then the number of the exploit. And then what it does is it copies it over to your home directory or whatever directory you're in. It looks like the same thing. Okay. All right, so it looks like we need to visit the URL and execute some kind of file. So here they're doing shell.txt. We can probably do a web shell, maybe with PHP, because it does mention up here PHP code injection. So let's do this. I can't get a PHP shell up there, so it looks like what you need to do is set up a web server with that shell and then have this specially crafted URL basically connect to the shell remotely. So basically that's what a file inclusion vulnerability is. So it allows the website to open up files that aren't local, which is usually bad. So I can host a web shell, include this URL, and when we visit the website, it'll actually serve the content on my machine, which will be a PHP reverse shell. And then hopefully if we set up a listener, it will connect. All right, so we got a couple of things to do here. First, let's figure out how we're going to do this. We're going to do, first let's set up a listener. So netcat, I think 1, 2, 3, 4 will be fine. And then let's go to my directory here. And I have a tools directory, shells, and I think I have PHP monkeys reverse shell in here copied so that I can modify it without messing up the one that comes with the Kali Linux system. So let's open with mousepad. Okay, so my IP address is 10.6.14.101, so that's good. So basically with this PHP reverse shell, the only two things you have to modify are your IP address and the port. So I have it set to 1234, and I have my correct IP address in here. So we can actually close this at this point. And we want to, if you remember, the exploit allows remote file inclusion. So we want to serve this up on a website so that when we paste that crafted URL into the browser, the website pulls the content from our server and serves it up, which should in turn execute the PHP reverse shell. Okay. So, excuse me. So the way you do that is in the directory where the shell is, open a terminal here, and you guys know this like the back of your hand probably. We're just going to serve up files here using the Python HTTP server. Okay, so we are serving up files, and we have a listener on 1234. So the last thing we need to do is, and I'm actually going to pop this open, is serve up this crafted URL. So copy. So here's the URL of the administrator panel. And I think what we just need to do, I don't think that kappa is necessary, but we'll try it both ways. So this is what the URL is going to look like. So basically, if you don't know what this is doing, we're accessing the website. And then here's the actual vulnerability that allows remote file inclusion. So what this is doing is it's basically polling my local machine, pulling down this PHP reverse shell PHP, serving it up, which would trigger the the reverse shell. So let's see if this works. I might have to include that kappa. I don't think so, but we'll see. Copy. All right, so just to make sure we're serving up our shell, which is perfect. We have our list on 1234, and now we just need to drop this URL in here and go. And it's hung, so that is a good sign. So if we come back here, we can look. Nothing's been pulled yet. So that's not a good sign. So I don't think we would have a shell, no. So I probably have to modify this. Oh, I got the wrong IP address, that's why. So let's put the right IP address in there, copy. This is the danger of when you do a machine and then later come back to it. You have to make sure you change all the IP addresses and everything. So let's try this again, copy, paste and go. All right, so I don't know if that's a good sign, but let's take a look. We still did not get a pull on our website, so that's not a good sign. We might need that kappa, so let's see. Oh, I do have kappa in there. That's probably the problem. Let's get rid of that kappa. So let's try again. So here it is. It's the IP address, and then from here on, this alerts. It looks like for this machine, you don't need that kappa in there. So let's try again. Okay, now it looks like it's hung, so that's a good sign. And we did. It looks like something pulled the reverse shell.php. Let's see if we have a shell. And we do. So that's perfect. Okay. So let's stabilize the shell a little bit here with the old Python. Paste clipboard. Okay. So now let's see what we have to do here. I think I tried all of the normal stuff and it didn't work. So if I do, let's first of all see who am I at. It looks like I'm data, but just to be sure. Data. So let's go see home ls and we have Miles Dyson, and that's it. So let's see if we can get into Miles Dyson. All right, we actually can. If I do an ls, it looks like there's the user flag. I will show that one, but I won't. I will block out the root flag. So txt. Okay, so there's the user flag. So we're 50% of the way there. Now, we know about mail. We read all the mail. The share, we've been on the share, and we know what the user.txt is. So it looks like we have a backup. Let's just see. That's a directory, I'm assuming. Yes. Yes, backups is a directory. So let's go into backups, do an ls. All right, there's a backup.shell and a backup.tgz. So let's do an ls, AIL. Okay, and that's bad news. This backup.shell is owned by root, which means we are not going to be able to modify that. Let's see if we can at least cat it. Backup.sh. And we can. So it looks like it's a bin bash shell script that basically goes into the var www.html directory and then does a tar of the Miles Davis backup to back up TGC. So basically it's backing up everything in var www.h/html to Miles Dyson's home directory. Now, I was stuck here for a while, and then I found something that said, did a little research on Linux privilege escalation with tar wildcards. So it looks like there's a vulnerability with tar where if you create these two special files and you could have a shell script, any kind of shell script, you write the shell script, you drop it in var html, and if you create these two files, tac checkpoint equals 1, tac checkpoint action execute shell, it basically does two things. It instructs tar when it gets to that file to set up a checkpoint, and once it reaches that checkpoint, it tells it to execute shell.shell when it reaches that checkpoint. That's the danger of doing the wildcard, is because now I have, if I put a shell script in there, it will process all these files, right? And we can just drop these two files in there, and it should execute whatever we want in there, okay? I will include the link to this in the description below. It's really kind of an interesting vulnerability. There's a bunch of articles out here on it. This one I thought was the best, okay? So the next thing we need to figure out is that thing running on any kind of schedule or anything? I don't know. So let's cron tab. Probably won't be able to see it here. It probably is running under root. So what we could do is we could run linps and see if there's a way to do that. So let's do Control X on our Control C, sorry, on our web shell. We'll go back a directory, and then I have cd linps, and then we can do the same thing. We could just serve up linps using a Python web server, and then we can come here, do the wget. I probably want to do this in the cd temp directory because I know I can write there as www data. So let's do that. Wget http 10.6.14.101 8000 linps.shell. Now this is why linps is great, because you're not going to you probably are not going to be able to figure out if that script is running on any kind of regular basis, because if it's owned by root and it's probably running in root's cron tab, you're really not going to be able to see that. So let's see what happens here. plus, come on, plus x linpeas.shell, and then we'll run linpeas.shell, and this shouldn't take too long. What I'll do is I'll pause the script, and when it's done, I'll come back. Okay, linpeas is done. So let's take a look. Cron tab is usually up towards the top. Yep, here we go. This is what we're looking for. So it looks like every minute this is running. So we can definitely take advantage of it using this. All right, so what we need to do is let's go to cd var www html. Oh no, what happened? I lost my shell. All right, let's pause the video, and when I get the shell back, I'll let you know. Okay, so we're back. I had to reset the machine. So as you can see, I'm back to where we were, which was var www html. So now what we need to do, as we discovered, is we need to take advantage of that basically bug with tar and the use of a wildcard. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to create a batch file or a shell script that is going to use a netcat, the OpenBSD netcat one-liner from payloads all the things, and we're just going to paste the clipboard there. Shell should be there, so let's make sure. Yes, and we're going to do chmod plus x shell.shell. Now we need to create the checkpoint stuff that is mentioned in the description of the tar bug. Paste clipboard. So we created the first one, and now we're going to create the second one. And look at that, we already got a shell over here. So now we're root, so we can do cd root, and we can do cat root.txt. All right, there's the flag. So you can see what we did here. We had to reset the machine, which is not uncommon with TryHackMe and Hack the Box. But to be able to exploit this machine, we ran an mmap scan. We found a website. We also found that SMB was available, so we queried SMB, found an anonymous share, downloaded a bunch of files, one of which had a list of passwords in it, and we knew there was probably a user named Miles Dyson based on the fact there was a share there. So we ran gobuster on the website. We found squirrel mail. We logged in using Miles Dyson and one of the passwords from the list. We read his email, so his SMB password had been reset. Logged into his share using the SMB password, found out that Kappa CMS was available. Couldn't find anything on that, so we eventually did a search exploit and found that Kappa had a vulnerability that allowed for a remote file inclusion, which essentially, using a specially crafted URL and a PHP reverse shell hosted on our box, we could basically drop that specially crafted URL into the Firefox browser. It would query our server, download the PHP reverse shell, and execute it when it was served up. We then got a shell, figured out that there was a backups folder in Miles' home directory. Took forever to do some research on the tar star bug, figured out that we needed to basically create a script in the folder that was being backed up along with a couple of checkpoints. And after we ran linpeas, we figured out that that script was being run every minute. So as soon as we pasted those commands in there with the shell script, you can see I didn't even barely finish and I already had a shell. So overall, good box, TryHackMe, not too bad. It was pretty easy for me up until the point where I had to figure out that tar star bug. I had no idea about that, and I was stuck on how I was going to privilege escalate. So anyway, hopefully you found this video useful. Hopefully this video helped you. I'm going to place all the links in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop them below. I'd be happy to have a chat with you. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.